In terms of strategy, Al, the president used a primetime address a few days ago this week to talk about threats to democracy. Poll after poll shows the economy is the issue. How do you see the choice facing voters right now? What do you think?
It's both.
Yeah.
And but the economy is what's largely on people's mind, and inflation, and you know, Republicans have really the only spending that they're talking about cutting is spending that helps people. They're talking about cutting Medicare. They're talking about overturning provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act, Medicare being able to negotiate with pharmaceuticals. That every other developed country does that, and we spend about 2 to 3 times as much on pharmaceuticals as they do. They want to repeal that. That's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. They $35 insulin for seniors. They want to repeal that. That will just hurt people. They have. Other than that, I don't know what they want to do about inflation. I haven't heard it. They just talk that game. So I think economics are important. They have to be. And they, of course, also will want to cut taxes on people, upper income people. That's what they always want to do. And that, again, will, you know, and they'll take that away. You see that Ron Johnson has talked about voting on Medicare and Social Security every year. Rick Scott, who's headed up the Senate campaign committee for the Republicans, has talked about that has to come up for renewal every 5 years. This should be very, very alarming. And look, I won my first term in the Senate. I won by 312 votes. Every vote counts. So my message to the Democrats is get out there, vote, and door knock in the next few days. That's what we do in Minnesota. We get out the vote and we knock on doors, and I want your viewers to do that.
And Charlie, let me ask you this. We just heard from Phil Mattingly a few moments ago. He touched on this. Let me ask you about the Pennsylvania Senate race, because Mehmet Oz has talked about bringing balance to politics if he's elected. But tonight, he's going to be campaigning with former President Trump, who, as we know, is talking about running for president maybe in a few weeks, according to his aides. Trump has some major competition, we should note. Oprah Winfrey, the icon who helped make Oz a star, she's endorsing John Fetterman. But do you think it's a good idea for Mehmet Oz to appear with Trump at this stage of the race? You know Pennsylvania so well. There are so many folks who are just sort of straight down the middle in terms of their politics. Could this be a last-minute turnoff?
Well, if I were advising the Oz campaign, I would have advised against, because right now Mehmet Oz needs to win swing voters, and Donald Trump really doesn't do a whole lot to help him there. So I would definitely be against it. But let me just say something about Pennsylvania generally. I know Joe Biden and Barack Obama are in the state today as well, but I don't think these surrogates are going to make much of a difference. You know, Barack Obama was clobbered in the midterms in Pennsylvania in 2010. He had a poor performance too in 2014 in the midterms. Joe Biden is underwater in Pennsylvania, and the Senate race is really going to be decided. I think it's very tight right now, and you know, I think it's dead even, to be quite honest, which I think is actually an advantage to Oz. But after that debate, that was really disqualifying for Fetterman, things have really moved. And, you know, particularly among college-educated men are moving towards Oz away from Fetterman, largely after that debate performance. The crime issue is resonating, especially in the Philadelphia region, where I think the Oz campaign has been very effective at contrasting the votes of Josh Shapiro, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, whom I've endorsed, contrasting their votes in the Board of Pardons between Fetterman and Shapiro. And that is really having an impact. Of course, the economy and inflation are really the primary issue. No one should underestimate that. And also, Fetterman made a mistake in the debate where he really couldn't articulate his view on fracking, which is an enormous issue in Western Pennsylvania, where so many jobs, a major economic issue out there, energy issue, people follow that very closely. So I think that right now that Oz is actually very well positioned to win the Senate race, as is Shapiro, the gubernatorial race.
Al, you want to chime in there?
Yeah, Oz made a mistake in the debate too, which he said that a woman's choice to have an abortion should be between her doctor herself and her local political official.
Yeah, that's
I don't think so.
that's true, Al.
Yeah, and I just also that was enabled Democrats to run as linking him to Mastriano, which that's a tactical mistake because he is against any abortion, even for the life of the mother, and rape. So I think that was a very big mistake, and I've seen the polls too, Charlie. And first of all, polls they tightened, but what I've seen, Fetterman is still ahead. I think in most of them. Maybe I haven't seen the latest polls, but I mean the last day or so. But it's going to be a very tight race, and that's why what's at stake here is so much. It's not just democracy; it is climate change. It is marriage equality. It's Roe. There's so much at stake here, and Oz is on the wrong side of these things.
Well, let me just say one thing about the debate. Look, the issue, yes, did Oz stumble on that abortion question? No doubt. But the problem for Fetterman was that many people watched that debate and questioned Fetterman's capacity to serve in office, because the Fetterman campaign has been, they have not been transparent. They understated this problem of the health issue. They should have replaced him back in the summer when they had the chance. And it was appalling, it's sad that they put him out there under those conditions, because many people watch that and they just don't think he's able to do the job, notwithstanding whatever mistakes Oz made, although he was very crisp and clear in his answers, and Fetterman was not. And that's what's driving a lot of the election right now. The polls have it. I think the average right now has Oz up by 0.1%, so it's dead even. So this thing can go anyway, and I think Oz has been pretty effective at trying to keep distance from Mastriano, except for today, which is a mistake, because Mastriano was a disastrous candidate for Republicans for a whole host of reasons I don't need to get into. But that's where we are in this state. But I'm telling you, I think right now that Oz is positioned to win.
Let me ask you though. I want to jump in here because Al, I want to get to what we've been learning in the last couple of days, which is that Trump is eyeing a possible presidential announcement in less than 2 weeks, and here he was teasing the crowd about this week.
In order to make our country successful and safe and glorious, I will very, very, very probably do it again, okay? Very, very, very probably. Get ready. That's all I'm telling you very soon. Get ready. Get ready.
Al, I just wonder, should this be a motivating factor for Democrats on Tuesday? The Republicans were all but begging Trump to please stay on the sidelines. Please don't make an announcement before the midterms. And here he is teasing one, having his aides go out there and say, okay, in the middle of November or late November, we're going to announce we're running for president. Isn't this kind of what the Democrats want at this point, to remind voters, guess who's coming back? Guess who's trying to get back in the White House?
Well, it's not only a motivating factor for Democrats. I think it's a motivating factor for Republicans like Charlie, who see Donald Trump for who he is, and that is a sociopath. And I also agree with Charlie, or who maybe it wasn't Charlie who said it, but that Trump is in there for himself. He isn't there to help Oz. He's in there for himself, and I think that'll backfire, and I hope it'll backfire, of course.
What do you think, Charlie? Do you wish that Donald Trump had just stayed out of this all the way until after the midterms? It's almost like he can't help himself.
Donald Trump should not show up in any swing state where a Republican is in a close race. Full stop. He should not be in Georgia. He should not be in Pennsylvania. He should not be in Wisconsin. Maybe Ohio. Okay, I get that. Maybe North Carolina. But they should stay out of those 3 states. Keep him out. Well, you can't get him out of Florida. He's in Mar-a-Lago. But the point I'm making is this is a disaster, because right now this is all about getting those swing voters. Yes, you want to spike up your base a bit. The only good thing about Trump being in Pennsylvania, he is not in the Philadelphia media market, if you're Mehmet Oz. And that's the only good thing. but he should not be here because all this does is remind people Trump, he helpfully intervenes in these races. He's done it in the primary, helping to nominate some very challenging candidates or exotic candidates, to be polite, and he's really complicated this election cycle for Republicans, where they should be walking away with this midterm right now. Even though the Roe decision certainly, has given Democrats some energy, they should still be walking away with this. And Trump is not helping. And if he announces after the election, and there's a runoff in Georgia, this could be a repeat of 2020. That would be, I can't think of anything worse for Republicans than Trump announcing after the election before the runoff, if should there be one in Georgia.